Okay, well, welcome everyone um, to our weekly WeAwake meditation. And I'm in not so sunny southern Utah, and it's some in the United States, but it's pretty cool here because we're pretty high up in the mountains, and so that's why I'm kind of bundled up. But it's really nice. We've been having lots of rain, and this is open country, so vast skies. And Heidi's here too. She's just about a block and a half away from here. And Pam's in outer space, as you can see. And the yeah, it's been gorgeous. And every afternoon I take my dog in my pickup truck and we go out into these vast open spaces that are near here and just marvel at the land around here. Very sacred, very beautiful, inspiring. So speaking of the land, the the track that we're going to do today is called VisionQuest. And VisionQuest is kind of a perennial practice that you find in almost all our ancestral cultures, and even after that. In medieval times, when people, before men would be knighted, they would spend a night in prayer and isolation, usually in some kind of church structure, just praying and asking for, a vision to help them be a good knight. The knight was supposed to be chivalrous and honest and brave and, defend those who couldn't defend themselves, etc. All that stuff. Didn't always work out that way, but that was the ideal. But anyway, we got a lot of our ideas of Vision Quest from Native American sources, and especially in the Plains tribes, such as Lakota, Dakota, Cheyenne, and often young men when they were making the transition from boyhood to manhood. And in a lot of the tribes, they would stay with the women pretty much when they were boys and do, you know, get initiated into the things that women do. And then they would be initiated in manhood, and then they would hang out more with the men and get initiated into the uh, task that that men would do. I mean, it was pretty differentiated, the task back then, except in exceptional cases. You could have a man who was very feminine, and they would be honored, for being something very special. Or you could have women who were very masculine, who'd go out and hunt buffalo and, be a warrior and do all that stuff. So there were always exceptions to the rules that were considered sacred. But some women went on Vision Quest too when they had that calling to be a medicine person or a healer. And so anyway, it's basically you would go out into the wilderness and you would fast on your own. You'd go away from the tribe and be out there and you know cry for a vision. One of the translations of vision because was a lamenting for a vision, crying out in your heart, asking for, Creator, Great Spirit, Wakan Tanka, show me the path that I'm supposed to walk. Show me how I'm supposed to give my life to serve all my relations. And very powerful stuff. And in our incredible rush of modernity and technology and just the way in the last, gosh, in my lifetime, and in you know I think of my grandfather's lifetime till now, the change in how we live has been so incredibly rapid, you know, in so many ways, and largely involving means of production and technologies that, in many cases, we've lost our souls. We've lost touch with who and what we are, and what we're supposed to be doing, and that's way, in our very modern and postmodern cultures where we have, you know 24/7 connection to the whole planet, and massive amounts of entertainment on cable and television and whatever streaming services, and it's just, I don't have to tell you about it. My grandfather was never on an airplane, you know. Took my father's generation to. He became a pilot, and that was a big deal, flying through the air. And now we just kind of take it for granted. Um, we've gone to the moon and all of that. In some ways, it's been really good. Life expectancy in first world countries, anyway, that have access to modern medicine. And there's complaints about modern medicine, which are justified, but in many ways, it's been incredibly effective. And they say that, on average, it's given people in first world countries that have access to modern medicine 30 extra years of being alive than we expected before. That's a lot of time. So the question is, what do you do with those 30 years? What do you do with your life now that you have a lot more time doing the earth walk here, in this body? So, and that's left a lot of us lost. And in a lot of ways, our traditional institutions, such as churches and whatnot, have failed a lot of us, and didn't provide the spiritual direction and spiritual guidance, and how to find that what our vocations were, what our callings were, besides just being very finding it out in school. Well, I'm really good in science, or I'm good at this or that, but not this kind of deep soul connection of understanding what path you're supposed to walk. And that's led to all kinds of problems and issues, like depression and addiction, and suicide, and a lot of mental illness. And you saw in the native peoples in this country, when their lives were taken away from them, and I speak generally, but more associated again with the plains cultures. All the buffalo were killed, and they were restricted to reservations where they had to stay there, and the lifestyles that they'd been doing for millennia were just in a generation taken. And it was really a problem. It's still a problem. Huge problems with people drinking themselves to death, and alcoholism, and suicide, and that loss of direction and culture. So in Native American cultures, many areas they've begun to regain their traditional wisdom and add it into our wisdom. And here's a nice little story about symbiosis of spiritual paths. I went to a number of Native American church ceremonies, or peyote ceremonies. Very, very sacred, very, very powerful. Not fun. It's not going there and getting high with a bunch of pals and having a good time. It's really an endurance, very powerful. But I noticed during the ceremony that a lot of people Native people were singing Christian songs and things about Jesus. They passed the poles, or whatever, the wands, I forget the name of them, around, and so each person gets a chance to hold it and say prayers and sing. And a lot of it was vocalizing. I said, I'll never learn this language. How can I sing? Because they're going, hey, and then I said, how? I can't learn all that. And he said, it's vocalizing. It's just letting, I guess it's kind of a Native American speaking in tongues or something, just like your spirit speak to spirit. So, but I noticed there was a lot of people singing Christian things. And so afterwards, when you come out of it, there's a whole thing of in the morning and eating breakfast together and connecting and praying together. I ask them why, well, this is a Native American church. What's all the Jesus stuff? And the answer I got was, well, he kept showing up. What do you say to that? So Jesus kept showing up. So anyway, I think our spiritual traditions are meant to inform one another, and there are so many ways to approach the sacred and to regain touch with our soul and to regain touch with our human potential and our human depth, which our ancestors, with the Greek, called the psyche or the soul. And today we're in a process of many of us of reestablishing that soul, because all the amazing diverting culture we have is can be very, very soulless in a lot of ways and leave us feeling empty and directionless. All that to say, these tracks were created to help us um, find our visions for our lives, and and then that may, in different periods and different cycles of your life, you may be called on to do different things, different career path. And for many years, I was a wilderness guide. It's just what I did. And then at some point, that kind of inner knowing voice said very clearly, "You're done." And I was terrified. Like, that's the only thing I know how to do. What do you mean I'm done? But I was done. So I had to, find out what God had for me, what the Spirit had for me to do. So, and it really helps if you ask, so, what am I, what do I feel in my heart? Why am I feeling that? What's under that? What is the desire of my soul? What's trying to express itself? How do I serve? Okay. Because in all the traditions, native or otherwise, it comes back to service, you know. And as the poet Bob Dylan said, you got to serve somebody, right? So it's true, you do have to serve, and uh, without that, uh, knowing that really consciously, it's can get very dark and get very confusing. So these tracks are uh, theta, high and high theta and high delta all at the same time. So they're interwoven. And they're also have subtle energy stuff that's built in, which Eric Thompson built in, and which is kind of a mysterious stuff, but it's very powerful and very effective. And just like we don't exactly understand what qi is, in Chinese medicine, but they've been doing it for thousands of years. And we don't exactly understand what electricity is, but obviously it works pretty well, or we wouldn't be talking here right now. So it's one of those mysterious things. So the subtle energy is also built into these tracks and designed to help us go inside and look deeply and answer the question, Great Spirit, have pity on me. Show me what I'm supposed to be doing so that my people may live. It's really, really good stuff. So we're doing track one, if I'm not mistaken. And this is a 30-minute track. And so sit up straight, like your nobility, because you're an amazing creation of the universe. Took a long time to get to be what you are right now, or relatively short time, depending on how you look at 13.8 billion years. It's like, that's a long time, but it's, you can think about it. It's not like infinity or anything. In a briefly short cosmic period of time, here we are. And uh, all the teachers seem to say that it's more than just a material accident, that consciousness is here and that we are able to go inside and ask these questions. It's woven into the fabric of our very being. So, Great Spirit, have pity on us. Show us our path, confirm our path so that our people may live. Oh, let's get started. Right. That seemed like about 10 minutes max. Sometimes it does that in meditation or in these altered states of inner work. You can really see what Einstein was talking about as time being relative. 5 minutes can seem like 5 centuries, or an hour and a half can seem like 15 minutes. So, yeah, often it seems when you're in a deep meditative space, it seems to go very quickly as opposed to what it's like on your watch, right? So, getting back to the theme of the Vision Quest and how essential that is, excuse me, there's a new school of thought that's called meta modern, if you've ever heard of it. And if you're interested in it, you can go to our deep transformation podcast, and we did a conversation about it. It's very interesting. It's very close to integral, if you know what integral is, but it's just kind of a different language, but covers most of the same bases. And they talked about this German concept, Bildung, which has no direct translation in English, but it means inner growth, soul connection, uh, constructing, like building, but constructing yourself in an interior way. And there's a whole school of literature they were called Bildungsroman, which a roman is a novel in German. And so there were these initiation journeys. And Goethe wrote one, the, the, something about the young weather. Anyway, there was a whole series of German novels about these young men who would go out on journey. Generally, they're men and women too sometimes. But you take them from an innocent kind of young person, and they'd go through all these travails, and they would come out, you know, uh, with their lives, a man, a human being, somebody who had found his path and found his destiny. And that's good stuff. And in Scandinavia, for a while, they had this thing that when people would finish their basic high school level stuff, they'd spend a couple of years in this buildings process of just finding out who they were, doing initiatory things, studying the interior part of education, not just learning your multiplication tables and basic history and stuff like that. And apparently it had a huge positive influence and helped the Scandinavian countries in question become the kind of models for what most people look at and say, these guys kind of got it together. They figured out how to take care of their people, how to deal with poverty and healthcare, and at the same time have the basic freedoms that we've all come to expect or hope for anyway. And so yeah, that and the Vision Quest. For many years, I worked as a wilderness guide and taking young people out into initiatory journeys out into the southern Utah wilderness, usually southern, almost always, well, 80% in southern Utah. And they were very powerful journeys. And uh, we would come out of these groups transformed, and we'd be very bonded as a group. Uh, and I would often tell the students, you're here because, your parents or the courts sent you here because you're having problems with the drugs or whatever it was. But this is something you should be grateful for, and that every young person should have an opportunity to experience. And later on, after we basically left the industry, there was this whole Paris Hilton came out and talked about all these horrible things that happened to her in a couple of programs. And I listened to it, and I think she was telling the truth. But that was the whole truth. I mean, there were many, I never saw that kind of abuse when I was a guide, but it became very, it's almost a cultural meme now that wilderness programs are some kind of abusive thing for young people, blah, blah. So that means we have a whole generation who are living in this world who are not getting the opportunity to go out into the wilderness and to find themselves and connect to Mother Earth, and you live in controlled environments, you know, everything's paved over, except for little breaks in parks and stuff like that. And you spend most of your time with your nose stuck in one of these devices that we carry with us now. And it's really, really tragic. And I think there was a great injustice done to most of the programs and those of us who were trying to do a good job. And I would have laid down my life for my students, in a New York minute, because I really took my responsibility of teaching and caring for them, as a very sacred duty. And their parents had been at their wits' end and they didn't know what to do with their students. So they tried this. And so they were trusting me with the welfare of their students out in the wilderness. And it's very transformative. And at the program that I designed, at the end of it, I mean, we would hike through the land and we would use friction methods, bow drills, hand drills to make our fires. We had tarps. We didn't even have tents, so you'd have to construct your own uh, shelters. And we'd have to find places where we could survive the weather. Whether it was a super heat and we had to go up into caves, or cooler. Or I remember one time we got caught in a blizzard and we found an overhang, and we were there for several days, just this big, beautiful overhang, and watching the blizzard. And it was one of the better experiences of my life, and for the students too. It's just so beautiful, and we connected with one another. We told each other our stories, our life stories, and it was a very sacred thing. And that's largely been discredited. And I had actually met at conferences the individuals who run the program that Paris Hilton were talking about, and I felt they were really weird. There was some energy that was wrong there. So I don't think Paris was lying. I think she was being pretty honest about her experience, and justifiably it was bad. But the majority of us were very, very idealistic and there to help. We didn't want to hurt people or bully them or whatever that was. And trying to help them find themselves, find their soul. And one of the ways of vision questing is to go and stay long, extended trips in the wilderness, sleeping under the stars, being close to nature, experiencing the things that our ancestors experienced. And it brings up a kind of knowing and a resilience and a toughness and just remarkable things. And so anyway, this track VisionQuest was designed to do that. And because I'd done quite a bit of vision questing myself, fasting, prayer fasting in the wilderness for my own growth. And then I built it into the program that I designed, that at the end of the program, there would be an opportunity to go on vision quest. And it was voluntarily. You can't force somebody to go out and fast, alone in the wilderness. But by the time they'd gotten through that, I mean, maybe with hundreds of students, lots of students, I think there was only one person that didn't want to do it, and they were really regretted that they hadn't done it because of the experiences that his fellow students had happened. So the vision quest, search for vision, search for meaning. The pandemic years were very difficult for a lot of us. We were cut off from our social interactions, and a lot of time I was here in southern Utah, and I'm an introvert, so being alone is kind of how I get refilled. And I had lots of, I wasn't going to get COVID from the mountains and the forests and the plains out here. So I spent a lot of time outdoors, and that really, really helped. Besides getting COVID and almost dying, it was, not all negative. So, yeah, and if we haven't had that kind of initiatory experience where we've discovered the depths of ourselves, our souls, and what we're here to do, we were put on here for with purpose, and the deeper one gets into inner journeying, spiritual journeying, the more that we realize that, unlike what reductionistic science tells us, that this is all random, there was this event, and then hydrogen appeared, and then nitrogen, and then it all went, and here we are. There's actually consciousness, is not just a byproduct of chemical coincidences, but it was actually part of the whole journey. And that's kind of hard to explain, because we can't even explain what consciousness is. Science does not know what consciousness is, and everybody's working on it. It's called the hard problem of consciousness. And reductionist science says it's just kind of an illusion that happens when nervous systems or brains do certain things, and we imagine that we're conscious. Kind of strange. So, and it's only a reaction of the brain. It doesn't exist outside this, this coconut on our shoulders, and that seems to be largely being discredited by a lot of scientists and a lot of us who've searched. So, all that to say, during the pandemic, I think I did 3 different online VisionQuest courses, and where we would work together over a couple of weeks, I think it was. And we have meetings in the morning where we talk about these things, and we meditate together using the technology, VisionQuest and other ones. And then people would have their assignments to go and do on their own. And then we'd come back and share the experiences and the dreams. And it felt really magical, because it became a collective vision quest, whereas the traditional vision quest, you're off on your own. Well, this happened within a group of people, and people's dreams started connecting with each other's dreams and things they would see. When I used to say, as soon as you decide to go on a vision quest, everything is part of the vision. So just the outside world, the people, the animals, everything that would show up was part, like interpreting a dream, had a deeper underlying level of meaning and purpose, and really, really remarkable. So it showed me and us that there are other ways of recovering your soul, your depths, your path, your meaning, your purpose, and how we are connected to everything in a deep, truer than true underlying unity of all things. And I could go on with this about a long time, but I'll spare you. But the thing is, it's important to ask the right questions, and to go inside in a interiorly sacred way and find out what you're about, find out what you're here to do. And then when you find out that, it can help you live in a better way. In other words, it doesn't mean your life is going to be all fun and there won't be tragedy and there won't be hardships and all this stuff, but it's much different to deal with that when you have a sense of connection and purpose and in your life, and realizing that you're not just this random thing, but you are this, this little particle sacred consciousness that, like a hologram, contains the all. It's all there in each one of us. Each bit contains the all. And if you study holograms, amazing technology gives us a physical way to understand these deeper truths. So, what should you do? Well, you should pay attention, okay, to what's going on in your life, to the markers, to the relationships, to the earth, to the wind, the sky, the water, to your dreams, to your interior self, and ask the questions. Seek for the answers. Great Spirit, have pity on me. Show me my way so that my people might live. And help me to ask these questions, not just in a selfish way, but in a way that is connected to service and helping others, because it is in helping others and finding that path that we truly find ourselves, and our lostness dissipates, and we come home. And it's just the beginning of the journey. So VisionQuest, great tracks. There's 2 tracks. There's 30-minute tracks. And if you do the work and go into that interior space and the brain waves that open you up to this kind of intuitive knowing and visionary parts of ourselves, where we learn the deepest mysteries and truths about our lives, you will you'll be a better man, you'll be a better woman, better person, and you can be of more service, and you can be, as St. Francis said, an instrument of peace, or as a Native American elder said, an empty bone that spirit flows through to gift life. So do the work. And yeah, thank you again for being here. And God bless you. And I'll pray for you. I'll pray for us all. I do that kind of stuff. You know. Oh.